Get Elvis. Okay, so we get a camera. You guys can either gather around, get up closer, or we can get the cameras going. Do you have a preference?
Up closer, Seth. Up
closer. You guys want to stand up and come on in close? What's up? It'll be easier for me to kind of show you. Just have to get up and kind of... Okay, so for those of you, how many guys are here the one day that I filled in for Chef Knopf? Yeah, so do you remember our different... Yeah, bony landmarks, exactly. So this is where your bony landmarks come in handy, understanding those. So if I can break this down, I can break down a cow, I can break down a pig, I can break down an elephant, I can break down a little bunny rabbit, right? So it kind of translates. The anatomy is very similar, although in particular, when we're talking about quadrupeds of this size, they're very, very similar. So when you get into these animals that are on 4 legs and that are 20 plus to 1,500 pounds, you're talking about very similar anatomical features.
Is that what you mean by quadrupeds?
Quadrupeds, yes. Walks on four legs. 4 legs. Everybody knew what I was talking about now, right? Yeah. Everybody remembers our high school biology. Yeah. So this is a goat, and I'm not sure if it's male or a female. I think it might be a female. Just by how the sacrum's looking. Yeah, it might be a female. So what we're going to do today is, I'm only doing one of these, right? Okay, all right, sweet. How much time do I have? Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of go through the basics of cooking procedures for the different cuts of meat. And when we're talking about animals and breaking them down like this, game animals or farmed animals, you're talking about when we use the term work in relationship to muscle mass, right? So if a muscle has had more work, it's going to be what? Tougher, right? Why?
Fibers.
More connective tissue, right? Which is basically what? Collagen. I mean, you're talking musculature, collagen, that sort of business, right? Now, for those of you that were around when I did Chef Knopf's class, you remember the 2 different types of joints? Ball and socket and saddle. Very good. So saddle. So you've got 2 different. You've got muscle, you've got ligaments, and tendons, right? So muscle is connected to what? Tendons, which connect that to bone. So tendons to bone, ligaments connect bone to bone. So when I have a bone-to-bone connection, typically I'm talking about a saddle joint. That's connected together by ligaments. And really similar to this sort of business right here. You got a lot of collagen in between, providing lubrication at the joint, and you've got support via ligature. So when you hear of an athlete tearing their ACL, their MCL, anterior or medial cruciate ligament, you're talking about medial meaning the middle, meaning right on the inside. So if I tear my MCL, what I've done is I've taken, my saddle or my saddle joint right here, right? I tore something off of that saddle joint that's holding it together. So that's why stuff doesn't work after that, right? Anybody done that? Yeah. Yeah, it sucks, doesn't it? Yeah, so, yeah, stuff don't work afterwards, right? Nothing works after you tear that. That's why that health is really important of those connective joints, right? So just because people's diets nowadays, it's people are having trouble with that stuff. So as well as exercise, So right there, I just split the sacrum, okay, and what comes off of that sacrum is 2 ball and socket joints, right? So ball and socket right here, like this. You're gonna find those where? Hips, shoulders, right? Places where there's a lot of work going on, where there's a lot of activity. So I know that when I have that ball and socket going on, I've got musculature around that that's going to have a lot of work having been put on it. So some basic anatomy. We can look at some comparisons, like if this was a cow, we'd be talking about brisket right here, right? So if we open up that chest cavity while it's still intact, we've got a little bit of diaphragm still attached right here. So that diaphragm does what? Pardon me? It helps the animal breathe. So you don't breathe by pulling air in, you breathe by your diaphragm contracting and expanding, right? So when you have hiccups, what you're talking about is a spasm in your diaphragm. Does that make sense to everybody? So this diaphragm, you can grind that up. We can use every part of this animal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start opening stuff up and just kind of releasing proteins a little bit so you can get a better picture of this. And once you understand kind of those basic, what again? The basic landmarks? Bony landmarks, right? And you learn how to start following the seams. This starts becoming a little bit easier. And when Chef says, well, do you know how to butcher? You go, well, I don't know. I saw that grumpy old guy Mullins break down something. I'm sure I can figure it out. I'm smarter than he is after all. And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at starting to free up some of this flank right here. So that flank, once I open that up a little bit, I see what do I have right here that's comparison. What is that? Tenderloin. Very good. And that's what kind of muscle? It's a balancing muscle. So this tenderloin, if you look at anatomy, quadruped and our anatomy, we're bipeds, right? We walk on 2 feet. These guys walk on 4. Never seen, well, every once in a while I'll see a goat kind of rear up and bang their head against another goat, right? But that's a whole other thing. So what we're talking about right here is a balancing muscle that does not get a lot of work on it, which is why it's so tender. But what else do you notice about a tender loin when you eat one? Sure, it's tender. Huh? Not much fat. It's, there'll be some marbling depending upon how they've finished out the animal. Usually what they do is they breed these cows and raise them, and then they fatten them up with corn right at the end, right? So, but this muscle doesn't have a lot of flavor either. So the more work you've got on something, the more flavor you're going to have. So, which is why, a lot of times we'll see a lot of sauces with these tenderloins. So I'm going to just take it right off right around here. And I'm just going to follow my rib cage. I'm going to keep opening stuff up. And I'm going to go just right along right here. And open this flank out.
Chef, why is tenderloin so expensive, like steak from the cow? It isn't the most flavorful.
Why is it so expensive?
Yeah.
Well, how much do you get? If you look at our little goat friend here, how much tenderloin do I actually get off of this little animal? And in comparable size, you're looking at an average of 5 pounds plus on like even a big tenderloin. That comes off of a 1,000-pound cow, and there's only how many of them? There's 2 per cow. Now, in my career, I've gone through, thousands of pounds of beef tenderloin, right? But there's only 2 per animal. So, and it's a sought-after piece of meat. It really is. People like, if I look at what I sell at the restaurant that I work at on a Friday and Saturday night, we sell a lot of beef tenderloins, a lot of them, smaller ones, and we also sell a lot of sirloin. And people seem to like, like that flat iron. Everybody heard of the flat iron? Well, that's marketing, right? Marketing is, the American Beef Council is pretty good on marketing, or North American.
What kind is that?
Well, you know what? It's going to depend upon the butcher. But you're talking about a sirloin cut. So you're talking about, is it going to be kosher? Where does stuff have to be kosher? Where does it have to come from? It's got to come from right here forward, right? So it can't come from anywhere back here, because where do I have right here? I've got the end of my rib cage, right? And I've got the rest of my intestines and all that other stuff, and we're talking about the practical realities of back in the day not having any refrigeration, right? No refrigeration, so you got to figure out how to get stuff around without it spoiling on you. So when I talk about connective tissue and how stuff is put together, what am I calling this? What? This is yeah, and this is the Achilles, right? Everybody remembers Achilles, right? And his magical armor. So we're going to start taking joints off, and we're going to start up at the shoulder here. We're just going to talk about seams and how to break stuff down. So I'm looking at, you know, a couple saddle joints right here, and I'm going to just open this up a little bit. And what I want to do is look for connective tissue. And when I start seeing connective tissue, I'm going to do this nice and slow so you guys can see this whole process. But if you just peek in here, you can see the seam. See how that connected to the spider web kind of coming off there? Yeah. That's what I'm looking for. That tells me I found that seam in between shoulder and rib cage, right? So I'm going to just open this up right here. And a lot of this is tip of the knife, right? And why do I want a flexible knife for this process? So I can get around stuff, right? So I followed my seam. You can see how I've got my knife in between the right spots here. So I've got these different planes of connective tissue, and it's separated nicely for me. So what I'm going to do then is just work around this muscle tissue, and I'm going to free this up. And again, this is where those bony landmarks help me, right? You can see how stuff is moving around right here. Got all this nice neck muscle, and I've got a nice little gland here. That's a good example of an immune gland right here. Part of what we're looking for when we're butchering, you can see this right here. See this little gland I've just split in half right here? So there's the other half of it. See that? That's the immune system, a piece of it, and that's part of butchery. You want to clear stuff like that out of that protein. That's part of what you're doing when you're breaking it down, what you're looking for. And stuff that's not going to break down when you're cooking it. And also, you just want to remove all these little glands. You'll find them in fatty tissue. Some of this, I'll pass this around. Then you can see that. If you want to pass that around and look at it, it's not gonna turn you into an alien or anything. So I'm taking this stuff right off the neck. I've got this nice little shoulder seam I'm working on. So I've broken this down right off the shoulder. You can see where the head of this bone is right here. So again, that's your leg right there, your fourth shank, and your shoulder. And again, I've got this nice little, you can see where this connective tissue separates, and this is what you're looking for. And this is all good grindable protein. I can grind this up for my lamb burger right here. Or goat burger, sorry. Equally as delicious. Goat's going to have a little bit more gamey texture than and flavor than a lamb. And I'm going to expose this rib cage for you. Okay, so I've got good grindable protein right here, right, along with this other business. So this stuff's going to be a little tougher, right? Good. This is great for grinding this shoulder, right? So rib cage, you can see how the rib cage is spread out. So if I'm looking at a lamb chop, what am I talking about? Or lamb loin. Talking about this protein that's running right along this back, or as some hunters will call it, backstrap. So, you know, somebody's driving down the freeway and all of a sudden they run over a little deer. Little deer didn't see that truck coming. What they're going to do is pull this backstrap off, just because, one, it's probably one of the better cuts of protein. It's a nice balance between having work, so it's got flavor, and it's got a certain amount of tenderness, right? Everybody's had a lamb chop, or most of you have, probably. I'm a little surprised by people have not tasted lamb when they come to school. But everybody knows what I'm talking about. So, tender, delicious, great flavor, yeah, great concentration of flavor. Because, again, it's had some work, it's got some connective tissue in it. It's got more connective tissue than that tenderloin, but it's not as tender. But it's still one of those nice grillable piece of meats. Right? I can grill that. Now this leg, I can roast this leg, right? I can braise it. I can throw it on an open barbecue with some rosemary, garlic, and olive oil, and maybe a little bit of salt, or maybe some nice sea salt, something with a lot of minerality. You know, and this is a nice example. These game meats are nice examples of meats that can match salt profiles really well. So I know you guys have talked about salt a little bit, especially in CAC, right? Because you guys talked about varietal salt. So I know you saw Hawaiian, Himalayan, truffle, that sort of business. So you think about the minerality of one of these salts, you can match that up with this protein, and it's the little details like that that'll make something nicer for people. While it's still being a fairly simple process for yourself. So I'm going to break this leg off, and what kind of joint do I have right here? Ball and socket, right? So for me to find that ball and socket, all I have to do is really look at where the proteins are working. I have to pull it off of the sacrum. Sacrum's again right here. It's running right along here, and the attachment point is right in the anterior portion right here, which is the strongest part of that sacrum. And it's surrounded by a lot of, connective tissue to support that. So you're talking about speed, motivation. You're going to be able to, this animal's going to be able to, when it needs to, go places fairly quickly. With goats, you're talking a lot of times uphill, because where are you finding these animals other than, they're great herd animals, goats, sheep, Mountains, right, yeah. So this species has typically evolved around the planet on these hilly. So anything that's running up and down hills for a living, what are you usually going to think about when you're cooking it? Tough, yeah, but flavorful, right? A lot of flavor. Maybe some different. Lamb has a very different flavor profile from chicken or from beef because of the difference in the proteins and the type of work that this animal is typically doing, right? So. Our little friend, the goat here, got a lot of big flavor, and again, I like goat a lot. I think it's got a nice flavor profile to it. It's a little different. Yes.
Where can you get goat beer?
Well, I got this from my meat purveyor, from Inner Bay Meats. Nowadays, because you've got these regional farm movements, you might be able to find one off of a local farmer. They'll be in the yellow pages, or you can look for them online, or you can probably not going to be able to find one through Food Services of America or.
So you can find a lot of them at halal markets.
Yes. Halal meaning.
Kosher.
Yes. Okay. Kosher. Yeah. So you're going to find a lot of goat, and what else in kosher markets? Chef Herman? Huh? What?
You'll find kosher food, but halal markets, you'll find more ethnic markets, you'll find a lot of goat. It's more than in kosher cooking, like in Islamic. Isn't it Latin too? Yeah, you'll find some. And Even farmers markets now.
So when you're removing these proteins, again, you're looking at, you know, places where you can release it, where you're not going to be wasting a lot of protein. And again, I'm taking the tip of my knife. You want that nice flexible knife, right? This is for butchering. This is really, really important, right? That flexibility is key. And the ability to hold an edge for a little while, because, and I think I did a pretty good job of sharpening my knives, because I almost poked a hole in my finger, which I usually do once a demo, just for fun.
As long as you don't talk to me, Chef.
You have 6 inches over here. You have to show us what not to do just as well as what to do, right?
Well, the thing is again, I'm not going to give myself stitches. One, if I'm paying attention, and two, if I'm using the tip of my knife, and I'm not doing this, right? I'm not sawing or hacking at it. You'll notice I'm just running along my bony landmarks, and I'm just releasing points as I go, a little bit at a time. I'm just going to release a little bit more, and I just released that ball and socket, and again, that's what you're looking to do. Right, there's my ball and socket. That's that major support right there. So I've got a pretty good scrape along this, and I've got another example of one of those glands that you'll find. And immune systems work by movement. So it works by muscle movement. So your immune system, and this is why doctors tell you to drink a lot of liquid, a lot of water, when you're not feeling well, right? I should be drinking water instead of lattes, but, you know, I'm a latte addict, so kind of a deal. But these immune glands will only pump you getting work, getting exercise, moving stuff around a little bit. And a lot of what I'm doing when I'm butchering as well is using the tip of that knife and the goal is that I've got not a lot of protein left on that bone, right? If I've done a good job, I'm just going to come in with the tip. Now, the other thing about bending that knife is it gives me a little bit more strength as I'm moving stuff around. You'll notice I get a little more tension, and I have ability to get nice and tight on that bony landmark right there. So there's my leg, right? Beautiful goat leg. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to follow this. Now part of like boning these legs out is again part understanding that anatomy. One thing I'm going to do is also I'm going to look for my joints right here. And what I'm going to do is take it right on the back side of the leg. And I'm on the back side of that knee. Take Mr. Sawzall. So, got a nice shank right here. So, if you've done your shank in Foundations 3, right? You were doing a lamb shank, right? But very similar to this. You're talking hind shank. And what type of cooking method? Braise, right? Why? Because it's had a lot of work put on it, right? So, it's got a lot of connective tissue. It's going to take a lot longer to break down. Is this little bit of business right here going to break down? No, it'll still be there. So you can kind of release that up a little bit. And if you want to see what the back side of that connection looks like, you can pass that around and you can feel where that attaches, right? And this type of bony landmark is what gives these animals the ability to really get around on steep surfaces, gives them nice little bursts of speed, And they can also do what? They can jump a little bit, right? They can pop up and down pretty quickly. If you've ever seen a deer going through high grass, what are they doing? They're not just kind of creeping through it. Why are they doing it? Well, they can see what the hell's coming to try and eat it, right? So, there's your shank, and there's your leg. Now, I'm going to go on the back side of this leg, because on the outside, also, I've still got what on this? Got my skin still. So what can I do with that skin? Huh? Crackling? Yeah? Well, we can try some goat crackling. Soap. Skin, are they making soap out of skin? I don't know. Leather, yes. But they were making more soap out of like hooves and all of that business, but sure.
Yeah, I learned that in the old book that I was.
Yeah. Yeah. See, you learn something new every day. What's that?
Sorry, I wasn't sure. I wasn't
Keep
sure.
gloves? Yeah.
In church my life.
Are you big into glove making?
No.
Oh. Alright. So if I want to, where's my butcher's tool? So I've got lovely bits of skin right there. I'm going to go through the back side of this. If I was going to, like this weekend, if I wanted to have a little goat barbecue, a little goat roast, I'm going to find the head of that bone, and I'm going to go in the interior portion of that leg. And work my way down towards the bone. Then using the flexibility of that knife, so the idea being is that I'm releasing that protein really close to the bone. You know, it's another thing I've never had is goat bone marrow. We could try that. Delicious, for sure. Yes, marrow, one of the good things in life. Our ancestors really, before we really developed technology and tools to do what we're doing, the original tools were these napped obsidian tools, right? Now, what's interesting about those napped edges is they're about 500 times sharper than your surgical steel. Those napped obsidian edges are nothing to screw around with. They would make very quick work of something like this.
We still use some steel back in Alaska.
Yeah, it works. It works. So I've got a nice little bit of business here. I'm going to take the rest of this kneecap off, because that won't break down either. So now I've got a nice little leg of goat. And I'm going to start with my larger end. Now there's about, I don't know, you'll have 50 different kinds of butchers telling you 50 different ways to tie these, but basically the idea is that I'm basically doing a slip knot. I want a knot that I can get tight, right, that's going to stay tight. I'm going to double that knot up. And then as I'm drawing my string off my butcher's twine, once twice. And that's how I'm going to do my run. I'm going to do once, twice. Slipping over my own to it. Now, what kind of schmear can I put on this lovely leg to make it nice and delicious? What kind of flavors do you think are going to work with this? Huh? More intense flavors? Like what?
Well, we're going to use it next term with goat that one. We'll use curry spices.
Curry, right. So these spices were originally, how did we come up with all these spices? Well, yeah, no refrigeration, so we were letting stuff, we had a lot more hydrochloric acid in our stomachs then, so we had more of an ability to tolerate, these meats that were probably not so good for us to be eating, but, considering what we needed to do, to survive, right, we had to have those spices to kind of mask all of that stuff. And when we talk about stuff like curry, now this goat, really good with a mole. Yes, delicious with mole. Everybody know what I'm talking about when I say mole? It's wonderful with mole. Really great flavors, matching each other. Chocolate, coffee, all of that business. Now when you talk about curry and mole, you're talking about something that's different from each mama to each mama, right? When you say curry, there may be some regional curries. India is a very big country, right? And you'll see curries across the country, but they'll be different from house to house to house to house, right? And all of this, and that's no different than Italian regional cuisine or American regional cuisine. My ancestors, when they came here and settled in North Dakota, like knuckleheads, right? Who settles in North Dakota? I mean, so, you're going to eat whatever you have. Well, really. Yeah, well, really, come on. The weather sucks during the winter, it sucks during the summer, it's just nasty and tornadoes. I mean, really. So I've got this nice little goat tenderloin here. Now, on a game animal like a goat, we're talking about that tenderloin not having a lot of work, being a balancing muscle, but on a game animal, it's going to have what? It's going to have a lot more flavor, right? Difference in proteins, difference in grazing styles, difference in food. So you've got, I don't know, how many guys have had antelope? Anybody had antelope? Yeah, what does it taste like? Antelope, it does. But it tastes like sage, really, because that's their primary food source. You are what you eat, exactly. And so an animal like an antelope is going to be very, what? Tough. It's going to have a lot of work on it. They're very fast movers. They have to be to survive. So that's your goat tenderloin right there.
Not very big.
And if somebody wants to get a saute pan and get a little bit of oil working and just a little bit of salt and pepper, we'll give these a taste really quick. I'm going to take both of these off. And you can see where this balancing muscle attaches. Now on a cow that had, everybody seen, have you guys broken down the pismos yet? Yeah? Beef tenderloin? Right? They tell me what pismo means. Peeled side muscle off. So, if you want to learn about meat, the way you start, get the North American Meat Producers book online. Buy that online for yourself. Actually get the package. There's a seafood and a meat book. Get them packaged together. It's about $75. Teach yourself about meat. Start there, because if you're a chef, you want to get exactly what you want from your meat purveyor. You give them there's a number for everything. There's a number for a whole goat. There's a number for goat tenderloin, right? So you tell them what you want exactly. I want a number 20418. And then hopefully your meat purveyor, unless they're kind of stupid, they'll get you exactly what you're looking for. And understanding exactly what you are looking for with your menu choices. You're looking for something that's going to be flavorful and delicious that you can do a lot with, and that you can make some good choices that people are going to come back for. So, go tenderloin. Somebody want to take this in back really quick and just clean all the silver skin and connective tissue off of this? Yeah? Go to 10. So, again, now on a cow, if I'm breaking down a beef tenderloin, you'll notice that they come with a side chain, right, typically, and then there's another muscle head on that, and you can get a couple portions out of that. And that head is attaching to this sacrum here. And again, it's providing support for, so, you know, when you're doing cow tipping, right, when the cow's asleep in eastern Washington, haven't just tipped a cow before. So it's pretty funny. It's kind of like putting tape on a cat's paws. It's pretty funny. It doesn't hurt him. Come on. So you've also got some interesting landmarks when you start getting into this into the chest area. Now, why do we have these bones? Why do we have all these long bones? It protects organs. Exactly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this over, and really quickly we're going to just take this flank off. So, got my flank on. Sorry, the robot's talking to me. I got like